The Breeders' Cup is fast approaching, and over the next few weeks, I will be talking a little bit about some of the key contenders in the juvenile races from both a pedigree and past performance standpoint. And today, we're going to be starting that out with the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies turf. So these juvenile turf races of the Breeders' Cup are always really competitive events, and you have to take a long look at both the local and obviously the foreign contenders. Brisnet currently has 17 possible contenders listed for the Juvenile Fillies turf on their past performances, which you can grab now. And you could really make a case for why just about every one of them could potentially win. They certainly all make sense to be pointing to this spot. And once the fields are finalized, we'll take a full look at each entrant more in depth and handicap the race as a whole. For now, this is more just highlighting 8 possible contenders to try and get an early feel for how this very competitive event might shape up. So when it comes to these turf races, you have to start with the European invaders, and Opera Singer really looks like the real deal for Aidan O'Brien and the Coolmore crew, who also brought over last year's winner Meditate. Although she finished 8th on debut, she's been excellent ever since. She broke her maiden in a mile, then finished 2nd in her first try against winners on August 12th. She came back to win in her first attempt against Group Company by 6.5 lengths, and then stepped up to Group 1 Company in the Prix Marcel Boussac at Longchamp, where she raced prominently and then drew off to post another impressive victory by 5 lengths. With 2 dominating performances in her last 2 starts and tactical speed, she looks like the likely favorite for this race. Opera Singer is by Justify, and out of the stakes-winning Sadler's Wells mare Liscana, who's already produced 2 other Grade 1 winners, Brave Anna and Hit It a Bomb, who won the Colts version of this race in 2015. The Scat Daddy Sadler's Wells cross that she has produced 8.5% stakes winners in 612 starters, including 5 other Greater Group 1 winners. The Justify Sadler's Wells cross has already produced 12.5% stakes winners in 56 starters, including another top contender in this race, Buku, who we will talk about a little bit later. And like many of the horses we're going to talk about here, this Scat Daddy influence is prominent on the turf. The Scat Daddy Danehill cross, which you can see from the second dam here, has produced 40 stakes winners, 6.4% of the 624 starters. Last year's winner of this race, Meditate, was by Scat Daddy's son, No Nay Never, and out of a Danehill second dam. So clearly, Opera Singer has the pedigree, the past performances, and the connections to win this race, and she has to be taken very seriously here. Another Grade 1 winner from Europe, Porta Fortuna, is trained by Donaka O'Brien and won her first 3 starts, including the Albany Stakes at Ascot in June. She took a little time off and came back with 2 Group 1 placings. She finished 2nd in the Phoenix Stakes and 3rd in the Moylaire Stud Stakes before taking the Juddmonte Chivley Park Stakes by 1.5 lengths last time out. She will be stretching out to a mile for the first time in the Breeders' Cup, but there's plenty of reason to believe that won't be an issue. Although her sire, Caravaggio, was a pure sprinter, her dam Too Precious was a winner at up to 12 furlongs, and Too Precious is a full sister to Numerian, a stakes winner at up to 11 furlongs in Australia. Just like last year's winner Meditate, she's bred on that Scat Daddy Danehill cross. And while the distance is a little bit of a question mark, there's reason to believe Porta Fortuna will be effective going a mile, and she has to be considered one of the top contenders in here. Next, we have Carla's Way. She was very impressive in the 7 furlong Rockville Stakes. She sat 2nd behind the pace setter and took the lead, drew off very easily in the stretch. She was also a winner on debut, then was beaten quite handily by Porta Fortuna in the Albany Stakes. She took a little time off and returned at the end of August to finish 2nd in a Group 3 stake at Goodwood behind Darnation, who came back to absolutely dazzle in a Group 2 stakes before being well beaten by Opera Singer in the Prix Marcel Boussac. She's a daughter of champion sprinter Star Spangled Banner and out of the new approach mare Sulalad, a winner at up to 7 furlongs. So there is a bit of a question mark here again regarding the distance, although new approach was a winner at up to 1.5 miles, so I wouldn't toss her out based solely on the distance if you like her otherwise. The Star Spangled Banner Galileo Cross has produced 7% stakes winners in 43 starters, including Grade 1 American Oaks winner Ray Moon, an example of this cross getting a horse who can go around a ground. So while she will be stretching out an extra furlong, the indication is that she should be able to handle it. The 3rd Greater Group 1 winner in the field is She Feels Pretty, a Cherie DeVaux trainee for Leal Stables. She's 2 for 2 in a short career so far, but she's shown a lot of promise. She had an excellent closing kick when sprinting on debut, then stretched out to a mile for her second start in the Natalma. She settled beautifully in mid-pack, not quite as far back as she was in that sprint on debut, and responded really impressively when asked, drawing off to win by 4¼ lengths. She's the daughter of the excellent stallion Caraconti and out of the more than ready mare Summer Sweet, a daughter of French stakes winner Summer Solstice, who was able to win at up to 12½ furlongs. Summer Solstice is the dam of 2 stakes winners, and Grade 1 placed Summer Solo, who is also the dam of 2 stakes winners. So there's a lot of female family pedigree here. And I love this Caraconti More Than Ready cross. It creates inbreeding to Woodman and line breeding to Woodman's family 1X, which is also the family of Caraconti's sire Bernstein and of More Than Ready himself, as well as She Feels Pretty second dam sire Caroleon. There's also, of course, this inbreeding to Halo, which you see a lot in Japan with that Sunday Silence blood. And I love seeing that family 1X duplicated. And I think She Feels Pretty looks like a budding superstar in this division, at least on this side of the Atlantic, if she can continue to improve on those first 2 impressive victories. The winner of the Miss Grillo Stakes, Hard to Justify, is also unbeaten in 2 career starts. She overcame trouble to win on her debut and then came back to show what she could do with a better trip, stalking a slow pace in the Miss Grillo and taking pressure to win by half a length over the late closing Life's an Audible, who is also potentially targeting this spot. A daughter of Justify and out of the quality road mare Instant Reflex, who was graded stakes placed on the turf in the Senator Kenmati Stakes, Hard to Justify traces back to the excellent turf mare Corazona, whose other descendants include the 2019 Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf runner-up Billy Batts. This Scat Daddy elusive quality cross has produced 7.9% stakes winners, including Group 1 winner No Nay Never. Clearly, Hard to Justify has plenty of talent, and I love that she's shown the ability to overcome trouble because this Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies turf is always a full race. So I think she's another one in a very tough field of talented fillies that you have to take a hard look at. Next is Buku. This is the winner of the Jessamine Stakes at Keeneland. She took a little while to figure things out, but has been absolutely brilliant in her last 2 starts. She finished 3rd in her first 2 starts, both on the dirt, and then encountered significant trouble in her first try on the turf at Saratoga. She finished 6 of 10 that day, but I think you can pretty much toss that effort because she rebounded in her next start at Churchill Downs, stalked the pace, and drew off to win by 4¾ lengths. And off of that performance, trainer Philip Bauer and owner Breeder Racing tried her in the Jessamine Stakes. And she came closing widest of all in the stretch and looked ultra impressive, overtaking basically the entire field. She's the 3rd filly by Justify on this list and the 2nd one from a Sadler's Wells line mare. Her dam Flowering Peach was a winner by Galileo and out of Naples Bay, who was a graded stakes winner on the turf and a half-sister to Medaglia d'Oro. So there is plenty of pedigree here for Buku. Now, if you follow me on social media or if you watched my preview of the Del Mar debutante, you will know that I am a huge fan of Dreamfire. I highlighted her on my blog before the OBS April sale, looked at her twice at that sale, and I just really like this horse. Her biggest weapon, though, is definitely her speed, which has been enough to get her into the winner's circle 3 times in as many starts, all in stakes races. She was most recently seen stretching out and trying the turf for the first time in the Surfer Girl and managed to get the job done over Buttercream Babe in a race where she overcame an inquiry, but I do think that she was clearly the best horse in this race, despite some bumping in the stretch. However, there is a big caveat there, and that is that race saw a pretty significant decrease in her Brisnet speed figures. She went from a 92 in the Sorrento to just a 73 in that Surfer Girl victory. And looking at the other contenders in here, a 73 is not going to get the job done. It's also true that there are potential entrants who could pressure her in here. And while she was very game in the Surfer Girl to take the pressure from Buttercream Babe, she's going to have to take pressure again and hold off closers who are better than what was coming after her in that race. So there is a lot to overcome here from Dreamfire. But you have to absolutely respect the connections for giving it a shot, and I think she deserves a chance here. Her pedigree is what drew me to her initially, and you could read about that on my blog, which is linked in the description here. But a quick summary is that I've been anticipating Flame Away all year, and I absolutely love the cross with Sky Mesa. So Sky Mesa, he's bred on an opposite female family cross to Flame Away. He's by a stallion from low family 2F and out of a mare from family 1, specifically family 1X, which we talked about a little bit earlier. Flame Away, meanwhile, is by a stallion from family 1. Scat Daddy is family 1W, and out of a mare from family 2F. Flameaway also has an additional source of family 2F in his grandsire Johannesburg, whose third dam is the second dam of Sky Mesa's sire Pulpit. That Johannesburg Pulpit cross can be seen in the likes of Triple Crown winner Justify. Dreamfire's dam appreciating with stakes place going a mile on the turf as a 2-year-old in the Natalma Stakes, which certainly had to help give her connections faith in her ability to perform over the distance and surface of the Surfer Girl. So while I think that Dreamfire is an ultra-talented filly, she's going to need the right trip to win, and I'm not quite sure she's as effective going a mile on a turf as she was sprinting in her first 2 starts. Jody's Pride is a horse who will be trying the turf for the first time in this race, but has won both of her career starts by open lengths, and her connections have been trying to get her on this surface all along. She broke her maiden by 10 lengths, going 5.5 furlongs in a Saratoga maiden special weight that got taken off the turf, and then came back to romp in the Matron Stakes at Belmont, which was also off the turf. She got a big Brisnet speed figure of 98 in that last race, although Equibase actually has her figure as regressing to a 79 after a 90 on debut. So there is an interesting thing to note there in the discrepancy between the speed figures. She's a horse who's shown speed in both of her races to date, and stretching out here, she will likely be a pace factor. Looking at her pedigree, turf should be her best game, and her connections certainly seem to think so since they've been trying to get her a race over it. The distance should also be within her wheelhouse. She's by American Pharaoh and out of a Scat Daddy mare, Jody Song, who won both of her career starts. They were going a mile and a 1/16 on the turf. So distance isn't a problem. American Pharaoh gets 14% winners on the turf, so turf shouldn't be a problem. And obviously, Jody Song was a daughter of Scat Daddy, who is present in half the horses that we've been talking about here today. She was also a half-sister to multiple stakes winner Make Mischief. The American Pharaoh Scat Daddy Cross has also produced multiple stakes winner McKinnon, who was a winner of 2 turf stakes going a mile as a 2-year-old. And 2 of the 6 starters now bred on this cross are stakes winners. So clearly something about it works. Jody's Pride will have to contend with 3 new things in the Breeders' Cup: the turf, the mile, and significant pace pressure. But she's done nothing wrong so far, and this seems like a good spot to go ahead and take a shot. So that is my first initial look at the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies turf. There are plenty of other potential contenders who I think could make some noise in here, but I want to wait for the post position draw before getting any deeper into any of those or the ones that we've talked about here. Let me know if you have any early thoughts so far on this race. To me, Opera Singer does look like a pretty strong favorite, but outside of her, there really are a lot of different directions that you could go. So I'm curious to hear what you all think about this race and curious to see how it shapes up and what I end up thinking when we see the final past performances and the draw. So for now, that is it. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you check out all the other content we have coming on the Breeders' Cup here on the channel. And until next time, thank you.